world-changing success, it doesn't come from a perfectly balanced, happy life. It almost always comes from surviving your own inner demons and, sometimes letting them drive.
Yeah, it really is a terrifying trade-off. We have this collective infatuation with the myth of the brilliant, well-adjusted innovator, right? We want to believe you can change the trajectory of human history while maintaining like a healthy work-life balance and a pleasant demeanor.
Right, totally.
But the reality is that the very things that make someone capable of shifting the world on its axis are often, the exact same things that make them an absolute nightmare to be around.
Exactly. And that's why today we are doing a deep dive into this incredibly revealing interview transcript featuring the legendary biographer Walter Isaacson. I mean, this is the writer who essentially embedded himself with Steve Jobs and more recently spent years shadowing Elon Musk.
Yeah, we're talking morning, noon, and night access here.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack the true, often dark cost of disruptive genius. We want to extract the exact mental frameworks these titans use to literally bend reality.
So, okay, let's unpack this. To really grasp this chaotic brand of genius, we need to see it in action. So let's look at the infamous Christmas Eve server farm incident.
Oh man, that story is the perfect encapsulation of this entire dynamic.
Yeah.
So picture the scene. It's late December, just shortly after Musk has taken over Twitter. He's at the headquarters auditing their infrastructure. And he decides they're operating with entirely too much redundancy.
Okay.
He looks at the Sacramento server facility and decides it needs to be shut down. He wants those servers moved to Texas immediately just to cut costs and streamline operations.
And of course, the engineering team gives him the standard, responsible corporate answer. They tell him a safe, secure migration of that magnitude requires 6 months of planning.
Right. 6 months to ensure no data is lost, no platforms go offline, and all the proper protocols are followed. But Musk looks at them and says, no, you can do it in 6 weeks. Wow.
And the engineers, they hold their ground, explaining the complexities of the network architecture. And the mood in the room gets incredibly dark. By the end of the meeting, Musk tells them they have 6 days.
Just 6 days.
Yeah. And eventually, he fires the dissenting voices. But the real chaos unfolds a few days later. It's Christmas Eve. Musk is flying from San Francisco to Texas. And while in the air over Nevada, he's just obsessing over this server problem. So he tells the pilot to make a U-turn mid-flight and lands the private jet in Sacramento.
Which is, that's a wildly impulsive move for a billionaire CEO managing multiple global companies.
It's completely erratic. So he and a couple of his cousins, who happen to be engineers, they go and rent a U-Haul truck. They drive to this highly secure facility, force their way past a very confused security guard, and physically enter the server farm.
Right.
But they hit a snag. To extract the servers, they actually need special facility technicians to lift the elevated floor panels and safely disconnect the power and data cables.
So instead of waiting, he basically turns into a rogue electrician.
Yeah.
He asks his bodyguard for a pocket knife, pries up the floorboards himself, crawls underneath the server racks in his nice clothes, and physically severs the connections with a pair of wire cutters he bought from Home Depot.
Exactly. He literally severed the physical connection to a major tech platform's infrastructure with hardware store tools. And this is where we have to understand the mechanism behind the madness, right? Because it was completely reckless.
And no kidding.
By cutting those cables so brutally, he degraded the servers. When they loaded them into the U-Haul and eventually got them to Texas, the platform was unstable for days. But, and this is the really terrifying revelation, Twitter didn't collapse. The core system actually survived.
So by doing the absolute most reckless thing imaginable, he proved that the engineer's 6-month, highly cautious redundancy plan was basically an illusion. It was just bureaucratic bloat.
Yes.
He bypassed half a year of committee planning in a single afternoon with a pocket knife.
Exactly that. He proved that the system could take a massive blunt force trauma and still function. Which brings us to the core and frankly dangerous idea that Isaacson observed over his years of shadowing these disruptors. And that idea is that the dark and the light come from the exact same root.
Right.
You simply cannot untangle the destructive, chaotic demon mode from the world-shifting innovation.
You just can't surgically extract the good parts of a disruptor. Like if you remove the manic, impulsive intensity that causes the leader to rip up floorboards and fire people on a holiday, you also accidentally remove the relentless, reality-defying drive that builds reusable rockets.
That's spot on.
It's like trying to harness a hurricane to power a city. I mean, you will absolutely get the electricity. You have to accept that some houses are going to get blown away in the process.
Yeah, and you have to accept that your own house might be one of the ones destroyed. Isaacson actually quotes Shakespeare here, noting that even the best are molded out of faults. If you isolate those dark strands, that specific demon mode where Musk gets cold, brutal, and entirely devoid of empathy, and you pull those out of his psychological makeup, you don't have Elon Musk at the end of the equation. You have a completely different person.
So why does he operate like a hurricane? If we want to understand the engine driving this, we have to look at the psychology.
Right.
Because we know from Isaacson's research that Musk's childhood in South Africa was unimaginably brutal.
It really was. And if we look at the foundational mechanics of human psychology, we know that humans naturally seek out the environment of their childhood, even if that environment was deeply painful. It's what feels familiar to them.
Right, it's what they know.
Exactly. Musk grew up on the autism spectrum. He was isolated, lacking standard social input-output skills, and was bullied mercilessly. But the real trauma was at home. His father, Errol Musk, is described vividly as a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde figure. Yeah, Isaacson recounts a deeply disturbing incident where a young Elon was beaten so badly by a group of kids that he was hospitalized for 4 days. And when he was finally released and went home, his father made him stand in front of him for 2 hours, berating him, calling him a loser, and actually taking the side of the kids who had assaulted him.
I mean, 2 hours of psychological torment from your own father, immediately following a severe physical assault. That completely rewires a developing brain.
It hardwired his central nervous system to equate high-stress environments with normalcy. Musk's brother Kimball explicitly tells Isaacson that Elon associates pain with love. Adversity shaped him. So today, as an adult leading these massive organizations, he is quite literally addicted to turmoil. He seeks out the fire because the fire is what feels like home.
That makes so much sense.
Isaacson shares a story that perfectly encapsulates this risk-seeking behavior. He was at the Starbase launch pad in Texas with Musk. They are having drinks by a fire pit. And Musk's 3-year-old son, Little X, is playing right on the edge of the fire pit, picking up things and throwing it into the flames.
And anyone's natural instinct would be to dive across the patio and grab the kid immediately.
Right, Isaacson was actively panicking. But Musk just sits back, watches his toddler flirt with severe burns, and tells a story about how, when he was a kid, he was told not to play with matches. So he took a box of matches, hid behind a tree, and played with them anyway.
Unbelievable.
His mother, Mae Musk, was also there watching this unfold, and she calmly noted that it is simply one generation of risk seekers training the next.
Okay, I have to jump in here and really challenge this premise. Does someone absolutely have to be traumatized to achieve greatness? Like, are we saying there are no well-adjusted, happy disruptors out there who just had nice childhoods?
No, it's a crucial distinction to make. You can absolutely be a highly successful, collaborative leader without relying on deep-seated trauma. Isaacson himself points to Jennifer Doudna, the Nobel laureate who helped invent CRISPR gene editing technology.
Right, the gene editing.
Exactly. She is highly effective. She leads with inspiration, collegiality, and team consensus. But we have to look at the different domains of innovation. Doudna operates in the realm of methodical scientific discovery, where peer review, ethical consensus, and careful iteration are the mechanisms of progress.
Right, because if you are editing the human genome, moving fast and breaking things is a terrible, catastrophic strategy. You want the cautious, well-adjusted leader.
Precisely. But if your goal is to brute force an entire industrial timeline, like single-handedly dragging the global auto industry into the electric age or privatizing the space race, that specific flavor of maniacal intensity often requires a demon driving the machine.
Yeah.
It requires an almost delusional focus to ignore the friction of the entire world telling you no.
It's the hyperfixation. Like when Musk taught himself to code C++ and build his own video game, Blaster, at age 12. He didn't just learn a hobby, he consumed the language until he mastered it.
And he applies that exact same hyperfixation today. It's incredibly similar to what Steve Jobs' team famously called his reality distortion field.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it goes far beyond just working hard. It is a psychological delusion that the impossible is merely a scheduling issue. Jobs would stare at an engineer without blinking and say, "Don't be afraid, you can shave 10 seconds off the boot up time of this Mac."
Wow.
He would warp their sense of what was physically possible until they achieved it. And Musk does the exact same thing with his delusional deadlines for rocket launches. He bends the reality of his workforce to match the reality in his head.
But here is where that reality distortion field hits a wall, right?
Yeah.
It works brilliantly on circuits, sheet metal, and code.
Yeah.
You can bend hardware to a delusional deadline, but you cannot bend human beings that way.
You know you can't.
Which brings us to how this trauma response psychology bleeds heavily into his personal life. According to Isaacson, this inability to control people is the root of Musk's recent political shifts. We have to look at this impartially just as a psychological driver.
Right. Isaacson draws a very direct psychological line here. He notes that Musk's intense public focus on what he calls the woke mind virus is deeply rooted in an agonizing family situation.
Okay.
His oldest surviving child, Xavier, transitioned to female, taking the name Jenna. But the fracture went far beyond the transition itself. Jenna became staunchly anti-capitalist, rejected Musk's entire identity, and completely severed all ties with him.
So the reality distortion field failed. He couldn't engineer a solution to his daughter's rejection. And Isaacson frames this total alienation as causing Musk an immense amount of personal pain.
Yes. He frames Musk's pivot toward these modern culture wars, and even his underlying motivation to purchase Twitter, as a reaction to the specific ideology he feels stole his daughter from him. He is running from an uncontrollable, deeply intimate personal trauma by seeking out a massive public arena of turmoil that he can actually attempt to control.
Is the demon seeking out a new fire?
Exactly.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting for you listening right now. Because while you and I probably have zero desire to replicate the trauma, the broken relationships, or the public chaos, we absolutely can steal the operational framework.
We can.
If we want to move the needle in our own careers or businesses, what is the actual mechanical system these titans use?
The foundation of the entire system is what Musk calls first principles thinking. The core idea is that you boil every single problem down to its fundamental physics. You completely ignore regulations, corporate rules, legacy systems, and the phrase, "that's how it is."
This is perfectly illustrated by the early days of SpaceX. When he realized building rockets was astronomically expensive, he didn't try to optimize the edges. He initially went to Russia to buy refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles, but the sellers jerked him around and raised the price.
Yeah, and on the plane ride back from Moscow, instead of giving up, he applied first principles. He asked himself, what is a rocket actually made of? He calculated the specific market cost of aerospace-grade aluminum, titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. He priced out the liquid oxygen and rocket-grade kerosene. And he realized that the raw materials made up barely 2% of the total price tag of a finished rocket.
2%. Which meant the other 98% of the cost was just bloat. It was legacy manufacturing processes, endless bureaucratic certifications, and bloated supply chains.
Exactly.
So he decided to just buy the raw metal and build the rocket himself.
And from that first principles revelation, he developed a rigid 5-step framework called the algorithm that governs every single engineering and business decision he makes.
Yeah, and the first phase of this algorithm is brilliant in its aggression. It's question every rule. But he takes it a step further than most managers. You cannot just say the legal department requires this or the military aerospace manual mandates this part.
Right.
You have to find a specific named human being who wrote that requirement, and you interrogate the physics behind it. That is so intense. It strips away the protected anonymity of corporate bureaucracy. If an engineer tells Musk, we need this protective felt pad between these two engine components, Musk demands to know who specifically mandated the felt pad.
Exactly.
Then he calls that person and asks them to prove, using the laws of physics, why the pad is necessary.
And if they can't prove it with undeniable physics, the rule is deleted, which feeds directly into the second phase of the algorithm. Simplify. Delete any part or process you possibly can.
Okay.
We have to elevate how we think about simplicity here. In engineering, every single part you add has a massive compounding cost. It adds physical weight to a rocket. It adds supply chain friction because you have to source it. And most importantly, it adds a new point of failure.
This connects so perfectly to Steve Jobs. Jobs was famously obsessed with the beauty of the unseen parts. He demanded that the circuit board inside the original Macintosh be visually stunning, with all the memory chips perfectly aligned.
Oh yeah, the engineers hated that.
Right, they argued that it would be sealed inside a plastic case and no user would ever see it. But Jobs' father had taught him to paint the back of the fence, even if it faced the alley. about ultimate, ruthless simplicity and care, stripping away the ugly, the bloated, and the unnecessary, even when no one is looking.
It is a passion for absolute perfection. And once you have questioned the rules and ruthlessly simplified the design by deleting parts, the third phase is speed up. Accelerate your cycle time. This is where those delusional deadlines serve a highly practical purpose. They act as forcing functions.
The story of the Friday night surge at SpaceX illustrates this perfectly. It's 10 p.m. on a Friday at the Starbase in South Texas. There are no launches scheduled.
Right.
Musk is wandering around, sees only 3 people working at the launch pad, and he just goes dark. He gets on the phone and demands that 100 engineers drop everything and fly in from California and Florida by tomorrow morning to stack a rocket that doesn't even need to be stacked yet.
Yeah, it was a brutal forcing function. It drove the engineering team to the brink of madness, but it forced them to realize how fast they could actually move when all bureaucratic constraints were removed. There's an engineer named Andy Krebs who survived that specific surge. He performed brilliantly, but eventually the constant manic pressure was too much. He burned out, quit SpaceX, moved to Los Angeles, and got a very normal, comfortable, high-paying engineering job.
But the crazy part of that story is that Isaacson runs into Krebs years later, and Krebs admits that he actually called Musk and asked for his job back at SpaceX.
Yep.
Because after experiencing that level of velocity, he realized he would rather be burned out than bored. The hurricane is intoxicating.
It really is. Which brings us to the final phase of the algorithm, automate. But the crucial caveat here is that you only automate after you have questioned, simplified, and sped up the process.
Right, not before.
Exactly. Musk admits his biggest unforced error with the Tesla Model 3 production line was spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to automate processes with robots that should have just been deleted from the design in the first place.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Why does this intensely aggressive framework matter to you listening right now? Whether you are running a startup, managing a team, or just trying to navigate your own career, it matters because the era of the safe, slow-moving company is dead.
It is entirely dead. The broader implication of Isaacson's work is highlighting the absolute threat of complacency. When Musk bought Twitter, he walked into a corporate culture that highly valued psychological safety.
Right.
Now, in organizational psychology, psychological safety, which was coined by Harvard's Amy Edmondson, means creating an environment where employees feel secure enough to speak up, make mistakes without punishment, and avoid chronic anxiety. It's largely considered the gold standard of modern management.
But Musk views that exact definition of safety as a disease. He walked past the yoga rooms and the quiet spaces and immediately declared that psychological safety was the enemy of innovation. He turned the company into a hardcore, high-anxiety environment.
He fundamentally believes that if you are relying on a risk-averse, comfortable culture, you are actively dying. Security breeds sloth. He genuinely believes that if things aren't blowing up 20% of the time, you simply aren't pushing the boundaries of physics hard enough.
Think about the massive Starship rocket launches over the last few years. The mainstream media reports catastrophic, explosive failures. But back in the control room, Musk and his engineers are popping champagne.
Oh yeah, because if you are at a legacy company like Boeing or NASA, an explosion is a career-ending disaster. You will spend 5 years in committee meetings planning how to avoid it.
Right, the bureaucracy.
But for a disruptor operating on first principles, an experiment by definition involves the unknown. An explosion isn't a failure. It is a high-speed data transfer. The rocket blowing up in the dirt gives you the exact telemetry data you need to iterate the next version faster. The world is simply moving too fast for slow, committee-driven decisions to survive.
So here is the hard truth for you. If you are playing it perfectly safe in your career right now, if you are avoiding failure at all costs, optimizing for comfort, and waiting for consensus before making a move 5 years from now, you will be obsolete. The future belongs entirely to those who are willing to risk explosions in order to learn faster than their competition.
And that leads us to the ultimate question behind all of this chaos, doesn't it? Why?
How do I do it?
Why live this way? Why subject yourself to the trauma, alienate your family, and push everyone around you to the absolute breaking point? Musk isn't doing this to be happy. He explicitly told Isaacson that happiness is not a priority for him. He views his life as playing an incredibly complex video game, and as soon as he beats one level, he immediately seeks out the next, harder level.
It's such a stark contrast to someone like Jeff Bezos. Isaacson makes a point to note that Bezos has his mega yacht, he enjoys his wealth, he savors the fruits of his labor.
Right.
Musk doesn't even seem to care about his own health or longevity. During the hardest production periods, he was sleeping on the factory floor, eating double bacon cheeseburgers and Oreo milkshakes as his one meal a day. He isn't optimizing for a long, relaxed retirement on a beach.
No, his drive is entirely existential. His ultimate goal is the preservation of human consciousness. He genuinely believes that consciousness might be a fragile, unique anomaly in our universe, and that we must become a multi-planetary species, specifically establishing a self-sustaining colony on Mars before some inevitable earthbound catastrophe wipes us out.
It requires a massive shift in how you view your own identity. Average leaders ask how to make everyone comfortable and how to hit the quarterly targets. World changers ask what fundamental rules of reality they need to break today. They aren't optimizing for a relaxing Friday evening off. They're optimizing for the survival of the species.
It's a staggering burden to place on your own shoulders, and it requires a level of profound sacrifice. A sacrifice of personal relationships, of peace of mind, of basic mental stability that the vast majority of us would never willingly accept.
Which brings us right back to that terrifying trade-off we started with. We look up and see the rockets landing perfectly upright. We hold the sleek, perfectly simplified iPhones in our hands. We marvel at the electricity lighting up the city, forgetting entirely about the destructive hurricane that had to be harnessed to generate. So I will leave you with this final thought to chew. If pushing the human race into the future requires you to live in perpetual turmoil, never satisfied, deeply alienated, and always fighting your own demons, wait, actually, is the $1 trillion view from the top actually worth